Coming up next is a special address by none other than Mr. Naveen Jaggi, President Global Chair, Retail Advisory Services, JLL. So I'd like to please invite our next speaker on stage, the veteran himself, the very pioneering Mr. Naveen Jaggi. What an honor to have you with us here this morning, sir. Thank you so much for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Naveen Jaggi.
Well, good afternoon. It's such an honor and pleasure to be here. I have not been to India in the last 5 years, and I can tell you that in this short period from 2018 to 23, the changes and evolution in this country are remarkable. All of you should be immensely proud of some of the things that we're seeing here, and I'm looking forward to sharing some thoughts around the global and U.S. retail trends, and of course my thoughts around how I think India really is the next frontier for retail going forward for the next 5 to 7 years. So when I was invited to come here, I was asked to talk a little bit about U.S. trends and global trends, and quite candidly, there's no better time than now to talk about what's actually happening in the States and how some of the learning lessons we've seen in the States can apply towards what will likely be a very profound, strong retail environment in India over the next 10 years. So let's start with the following. We're going to talk about some introductions, retail performance, trends, the always important malls in America, which there seems to be constantly an evolution around what's happening in malls in the USA. Why India now? What are some of the brands that are entering India today? And we'll close with some global takeaways from other parts of the world. So I've had the chance to travel around the world over the last couple of years, and it's remarkable how the subject of retail changes from month to month. In 22, when I was in London, the ask was, will retail ever recover? Is brick and mortar dead and gone for good? Coming out of the pandemic, that wasn't a surprise. The question was, will retail ever be important in the brick and mortar? Will it just be ordering online? The reality is that people don't shop just for goods, they shop for experiences. And Anuja's panel just prior to mine talked about the fact that today, more than ever, experience drives consumer behavior. If you want one statistic only about what's happening in the USA today, this is the slide. No other. This slide will represent exactly the current environment for retail in the USA today. In 2006, 2007, 2008, the U.S. retail environment delivered over 200 million square feet of retail space per year. So roughly 800 million square feet of retail were delivered between 2006, 7, 8, and 9. Look at the back end of this chart. Roughly 10% of 2008, 9, and 10 peak is being delivered today. So when you think about retail today, it is all about a lack of supply. It is a clear dislocation between supply and demand. Retailers continue to demand and grow. There's not nearly enough supply to support the demand of retailers. And why are retailers demanding growth? Because U.S. consumers are resilient and strong and continue to demand more and more from the retail community. So what does retail performance look like today in the U.S.? For the last 5 quarters, there's been a prediction on a recession in the U.S. Since the first quarter of 22, when we started seeing interest rates go up, people have been expecting a recession, and yet we haven't seen a recession take place. Why? Because consumer confidence is high, consumer sentiment is high, inflation is dropping, unemployment is low. The idea of a recession in the U.S. today is almost zero, which is much different than what we should be talking about, which is whether there is a consumer recession or a real estate recession. And the reality is we're probably entering the first era of a retail or a real estate recession in the USA. Not a retail real estate recession, but an office real estate valuation recession. That's very likely. But if you look at these 5 rings, it just goes to show you that from a consumer sentiment standpoint and all the other data supporting consumer trends today, the U.S. market, and by extension the European market, is quite healthy. People often say, what's happening in store openings? We have over 4,500 store openings in the USA today. compared to about 3,500 closings. So the growth in retail continues to outpace store closings, which is another indication of the fact that in spite of all of the constant talk of retail dying, actually retail looks quite healthy. So if you think about trends, I wanted to just emphasize a couple of important trends here. First, direct-to-consumer brands continue to take a lot of space. Most online brands, if I say most, I'll say 90 to 100%, have always ambitioned to be brick and mortar. I'll make that very clear. Every retailer from Warby Parker to Untuckit to you name it, anybody that I've spoken to who was online only has always said their ambition was to always be brick and mortar. Let me remind everybody in the audience here today that in the U.S., online sales represent basically 16% of all sales in the U.S. Or to frame it a different way, 84% of all retail sales originate at the store, not online. It is still very much a brick and mortar economy. Therefore, these 6 pictures represent the fact that we continue to see new brands explore brick and mortar expansion as opposed to online growth. Luxury brands are a big driver in the USA today. Study after study shows that most luxury brands look at the USA today as the biggest market for growth, and not just in the primary cities, but the secondary cities as well. For every store that you open in New York or Chicago, you'll open a store in Austin or Nashville or Atlanta. The fact is that with Europe under war threat from Ukraine, China just opening up, European legacy and heritage brands still look at the USA as their primary and largest market for growth. Here are just some brands that have opened up brand new stores in the USA in main streets and malls in the last 24 months, indicative of the fact that today there truly is a bifurcation between heritage, luxury brands, and premium brands. So to make a distinction for the audience, luxury for us is defined as Cartier, Louis Vuitton, etc., as opposed to premium brands like Michael Kors, Tory Burch, Coach. There are 2 distinct groups. It's really luxury driving most of the growth in the malls across America. And this is what this represents. U.S. represents the fact that we're seeing an evolution not just in luxury brands, but also in restaurants. And I'll point this out. We've actually got a new category in the States that's really being closely defined. It's not just entertainment or F&B. We're not talking about entertainment. That's one of the biggest aspects of growth in U.S. retail properties. So much so that most of the projects today are looking at about a 20% of dedicated GLA to entertainment, F&B, entertainment, as opposed to soft goods. That will continue to grow. We're also looking at Instagrammable retail. These are just 6 examples. And this will continue on. I was at a couple of these locations recently. These units aren't that big in some cases, but almost all the attention goes to where you can get a picture taken with an Instagrammable moment. I would ask you to take a look at a really interesting concept called the Color Factory. The Color Factory is run by an Indian lady named Tina Malhotra. Look it up. A fantastic museum-oriented event place where both children and adults can have an amazing family time having fun with color and entertainment. So this segues into my favorite topic, malls in America today. If you look at the Time magazine, people have been predicting the demise of the mall since 1998. That cover was 1998. Kiss your mall goodbye. We still have over 1,000 malls in the USA today that are operating, which goes to show that malls aren't going away. We're not a matter of being overbuilt, we're a matter of being under-demolished. We're starting to see that happening today more than ever. We at one time had 24 square feet of retail per capita in the USA. Do the math on your calculator. Today, it's less than 22, almost 21 square feet of retail per capita. Or put it another way, we've taken almost 1 billion square feet out of the retail community in the States over the last 5 years. We are right-sizing and correcting. As you can see here, luxury continues to evolve in the mall sector. It wasn't 10 years ago that you would see luxury mixed in with aspirational premium retail. Now you're seeing some of the best malls in America dedicate exclusive wings to the tune of between 100 and 200,000 square feet just for luxury. Anybody planning to travel to the States in the next 6 to 12 months, I ask you to go to one mall in particular. Just go to New Jersey, to American Dream. You want to see the future of entertainment mixed with luxury in a mall? Check it out. It's a fantastic place with a lot of growth potential. So why India now? So this will be my personal commentary on why I think this is the time for India to capture the moment. Without a doubt, the great awareness of U.S. brands in India is better than any other growing market in the world. More than China, more than Vietnam, more than the Philippines, India is the most connected to Western brands than any other market in the world. It is India's chance to start spending more time educating U.S., North American, and European retailers on how to conduct business in India. There is a genuine desire by American and Western brands to be in India. They just don't know how to get here. And I think it's our responsibility to educate, inform, and instruct all of these clients that want to look here on how to conduct business in India. So this is India retail snapshots, of which you'll hear more about later today. But the bottom line is there is a very, very strong mall-based economy that is ripe for growth. Let me share a statistic with you. We have roughly 1,000 malls in America for a 300 million population. China claims nearly 4,000 malls in a population of 1.4 billion. India, with a similar population of 1.4 billion, claims about 250 to 300 malls. You can add some shopping centers that can turn that number to 500. But the bottom line is there's an immense opportunity in India over the next 10 years to capture the share of middle class or middle income growth that so desperately wants to drive consumer behavior. As a reminder, in the US and in Western Europe, the US in particular, 70% of the US economy is consumer driven. In Western Europe, it's nearly 60% consumer driven. That's the potential for India today more than ever. Some of the brands that we've seen enter India over the last 10 years goes to show that almost every brand you can imagine is in India today. Yesterday, I went to a couple of malls, Palladium and Phoenix Mall. I can tell you right now that, to me, walking through those malls felt like I was walking through a mall in any town USA. These malls are magnificent. They have the best brands in the world. It is very impressive, and it just to show you how much we've leapt forward in India over the last 5 to 7 years. If you have that kind of momentum with brands entering, there's no reason why any brand in the world wouldn't want to be here. It's our chance to educate them, find an advisor, find a consultant to show them how to enter this country. We continue to invite more and more brands from all spectrums, whether it's value brands, luxury brands, entertainment, value, of course, being the big driver across the USA as well. I think one very noticeable absence in India today, which is the big opportunity, is the neighborhood shopping center format, the grocery anchored format. People often say, where does America shop? I say America doesn't shop at the mall. They shop at the grocery anchored shopping center, Whole Foods, Publix, Safeway, etc. If you go to Germany, if you go to England, where are they shopping? They're shopping out-of-town parks. They're shopping at White Rose. They're shopping at Whole Foods. They're shopping at Aldi. They're shopping at Lidl, Carrefour. Those are the kind of places that everyday shoppers shop. That still hasn't developed in India. An immense and creative opportunity for India to develop that kind of base of consumer and retail. If you think about what remains on the radar for retailers across the globe, it is our opinion at JLL that India is the most prominent market, and we have to spend more and more time making sure that we brag and promote India. This is India's opportunity. Robust projected supply of retail development. I've heard more and more about new developments coming around. I've driven around Bombay for the last 2 days. The amount of cranes, the amount of activity, the amount of retailer developments happening here, the amount of retailer development happening in Chennai, in Bangalore, in Delhi, is astounding. Please read this report. You'll see some stats that show how much potential there is. We have to fulfill that potential over the next 5-7 years. And I do believe this headline, India is the new American retail frontier. It's our opportunity. Everyone in this audience should take that opportunity. So just global takeaways. If you'll notice here, a couple of things that just stand out to me. One is that Europe is still lagging behind Western Canada and the USA in terms of recovery. The war is putting a true dampening on retail growth and consumer behavior. On the opposite end of the spectrum, we have the Southeast Asian countries, not including China, that are quite robust. The G20 was here in India last week. What we heard was that Vietnam, for example, where President Biden visited right after leaving India, goes to show that there are some Pacific Rim countries that are going to start taking a significant share of manufacturing from China. I can tell you firsthand, I've spoken to retailers in the US, and they're pivoting away from China as a primary base for manufacturing and for assembly. And what's the number one country they're looking to move to? It's not Mexico. It's India. As opposed to other parts of the world, what we're seeing is stability in Canada. Canada is a very, very stable retail market. But also keep in mind that the Canadian population is roughly 35 million, which is the same population as that of the state of Texas. It's the population, 1/10 the population of the USA. So Canada is a very stable, strong market, but also a market that has a lot of Indian population in Canada and looks to export that to India. And I'll leave you with this thought here. I've always liked to leave something for somebody to think about. If you think about it, opportunity comes sometimes just once in a lifetime. I think it is our chance at India to capture that moment to bring retail and the world's focus to India. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for those rich data points that we managed to gather, understanding India's retail trajectory. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we are now about to launch the report, for which I'd also like to invite on stage Mr. Pramod Arora of PVR, Mr. Abhishek Bansal of Pacific, Mukesh Kumar from Quest Mall, Rajneesh Mahajan in Orbit Malls, as well as Rahul Arora of JLL and Dr. Samantak Das of JLL. So let's have all our dignitaries right here on stage for the unveiling and the launch of the report, along with Mr. Naveen Jaggi. I'd also like to request Ashna Gemini Sharan to please also join in on the stage for the launch of the report. We'll also be gathering some key insights on the report in a short while, so I'm going to request everyone to stay tuned to it. But first up, let's have you all please come center stage. Let's launch the report for all of us. All right, so on that note, let's go ahead and let's unveil the report. Let's launch the report. For our members of the audience, well, thank you so much. In fact, we're about to gather some key insights on the report as well. But thank you so much for joining us for the launch of the report. Thank you very much, sir. Well, I'll be requesting Dr. Samantak Das, Chief Economist and Executive Director, Research and Raise India, JLL, to remain on stage so that he can share the key insights from this report. We managed to launch the report, but it's now time to gather in the insights. So over to you, sir.
A very good afternoon. I think we are extremely glad to have partnered with MAPIC India in this flagship event. And this is a great opportunity for us to just take you through the summary of this report that we have just launched. And I know there is a time restriction, but nevertheless, I think Naveen has made my presentation a bit easier because he has touched upon quite a significant aspects of retail and how retail is in India, retail is on a trajectory, growth trajectory. So with this, what I will do is, so I have 5 relevant slides. So first, I will try to explain that retail per se, the performance of retail developers as well as retail chains from the financial side has shown a tremendous growth year on year, and similarly the retail chains as well. So numbers are important, but I think what I want to just convey that this type of revenue growth is basically a testament to the consumption growth that we are having. And it's great time for India retail to take the next step. Coming to the real estate side, the physical side of real estate, I think first let me start with the gross leasing, which is, I think, one of the most important indicators to track the retail performance, the real estate part. Till June, that's first half of 2023, we have clocked 3.16 million square feet, and definitely this is 18 to 20% higher than the same period last year. And if you see the presentation, it's F&B and apparel. These are the two segments more than 51%, more than 50%. But very important is we have witnessed a fantastic, a landmark event in India. That's basically the launch, the listing of first retail asset-led REIT. So as we know, REIT we have experienced in the office market, it increases the depth of the market in terms of investment, the transparency. So it has happened and it will happen more in the coming years in terms of REIT in retail. So this Nexus Select Trust is the first retail REIT, wherein we know that it's across 17 consumption centers, and right now 9.9 million square feet of organized retail asset under this REIT. However, very interesting is we have estimated in this report that 43 to 44 million square feet of REIT-worthy assets are as of today operational. So that's the potential of REIT in India in retail right now. Now, when I say REIT-worthy, what we have done is we have taken the superior and good malls. Leasing area is 100,000 square feet. That's the benchmark. These are the filters we have used. And maximum vacancy of 20%. So that's the way we have estimated this. And it's a 43 to 44 million square feet of potential REIT coming in coming years. Again, the real estate side is the stock side now, the stock analysis and its vacancy. Today, we have 89 million square feet of organized malls in the top 7 cities, and we have concentrated on the top 7 cities in this report. But very important to understand that there is a significant polarization in terms of occupancy towards superior malls. So you can see we have put some numbers across the cities. Most of the superior malls, the vacancy is single digit. And that's basically, we can talk about a structural vacancy, long-term vacancy, and that's extremely healthy. But in terms of average malls, definitely, we have a vacancy quite high. That's put in the table. Naveen has touched on the supply. So yes, supply in the top 7 cities would be around 38 million square feet upcoming. And that will be the number, that will be the stock that we will have by the end of 2027. So that will take our stock from 89 to 127 million square feet, a growth of 43%. So these are the analysis we have done in the report. And I will urge everybody to go through the reports, and I'm sure that you will all find it very, very insightful. Coming to the next segment of the report, it's retail landscape. So we have found certain trends among retailers and retail per se. And the first trend that we have discussed in the report is strategic partnerships. Again, Naveen has touched upon this. So international retailers, they are partnering with Indian retailers, big ways. 24, international brands have already come in India from 2021. That's a big number. Even domestic retailers are partnering with big retailers in India. So that's one trend. Second trend is, newer segments and formats coming up. So this is type of innovation and dynamism we are observing in India. Because in India, as again Naveen touched upon, that the experience is, the shopping experience, the expectation is changing a lot. And that's why we see many of the retailers, they're opening new formats, they're opening new brands, so on and so forth. So that's another segment or another trend that we have observed. And the last trend that we have observed and we have analyzed in this report is basically the brick and mortar and the online. The lines between these is are getting blurred. So we have seen many of the online retailers coming into brick and mortar and vice versa. The last section of this report is with the new themes. Premium outlet center is one theme that we have analyzed, and I guess there is a session on this tomorrow. So this is very, very familiar in global perspective. I think it's quite popular in US, in Middle East, in Europe. In India, it's very, very new, I would say, because it started with some sort of a standalone format. Now premium brands are coming in, and now we have seen at least one quite distinct premium outlet mall, full-fledged mall, and that's where I would say that there is a huge potential upside for this type of formats. So what we believe very, very strongly that in tier 2 cities or the peripheral markets of metros, this type of format should come, and premium retailers should bring in separate lines to cater to this segment. The next is highway retailing. I think India, we are proud to say that as of today, the last statistics from Government of India is 145,000 kilometers of highway. So highway retailing is the next theme we have analyzed in this report. And going forward by 2025, the estimate is that we will have 185,000 kilometers of highway. So that, it's no-brainer that our traffic has increased. In India, the consumption, the paying capacity is increased. There is advancement in infrastructure in highways. So this is definitely going to be the next wave in a very organized way. As we see today, we have local joints, QSRs, mainly in the highways. But we have started observing lots of other segments getting into this highway, highway retailing. Like, for example, we have seen apparel, we have seen entertainment, gaming zones, cinemas, fine dining. So that's basically the next, level of development that we are expecting as new themes in retail. Of course, there are many other themes, including, your AI, technology, your sustainability in real estate, retail real estate. But we have restricted our discussions on these two emerging themes in this report. So that's exactly what we have covered in this report. So I will not take much more time. I think I have summarized the major contents. And last, thank you to all of you to patiently hear us. Thank you so much.